All right, welcome back. So here we go. We're going to step through, as I promised, the test cross problems and make sure that everyone understands the whole thing. I'm going to make one video here that goes through problem number 1. It's the longest and it's the most in-depth, so we're going to go through that in detail. And then I'll make a second video that you can watch after that for problems 2 and 3. Let's jump right in. Okay, so the first thing that you should do whenever you have a word problem is to write down some important information. So, first of all, we know that capital F is pink flowers. We know that the pink flower allele is dominant over the white flower allele. So we use a capital F for pink, lowercase f for white flowers. Okay? Number 2, we also know that your customers want more pink flowers. They want to buy pink flowers, so you do not want to make as many white flowers. Supply and demand. You want to make more pink flowers so that you can sell them to your customers. Okay? That's the basic stuff. Now we can continue to write down information that we do know or don't know, and we can continue to make sure that we set up this problem correctly. So first, I'm going to draw this flower, this pink flower right here, and pardon my really bad drawing, but I'm just going to do it quickly for you so that you can see we have a pink flower. All right, but since plant A is pink, we can write down that its phenotype is pink. Phenotype is the physical trait. Genotype are the types of genes. We don't know what the types of genes it has, however, because we weren't told that. We need to figure that out. That's the goal of this problem. To do that, we're going to do a test cross. It's a cross with a plant whose genotype we do know, which is plant B. We know the genotype of plant B because it's a white flower. If it is a white flower, that means its phenotype is white. We know its genotype has to be homozygous recessive. You cannot have any other genotype for plant B because the only way for the white allele to show up is if there are 2 copies of that recessive allele, 2 lowercase f's. So plant B is homozygous recessive. Now, when you cross plant A with plant B, you're going to essentially be creating this Punnett square, even though you don't know the genotype of plant A. You're going to be doing this cross with plant A, plant B, and seeing what the outcome will be. Okay, so since we do know plant B, we'll start with that. We'll put its genotype up at the top, which is homozygous recessive, so 2 lowercase f's. Plant A, since it's the second parent, can go here on the left, but we don't know what it is. So we're putting question marks first. However, the problem, if you go back and look at it, does tell us that after crossing the 2 plants, after crossing plant A with plant B, you get 6 pink plants and 6 white plants in the next generation. So that's a 50-50 mix. 50% pink, 50% white. That's super important, and we're going to come back to that in a minute. For now, we're going to write it down, and we're going to continue with what we know. We know that plant A could be 2 possible genotypes. Okay? There are 2 ways, essentially, for plant A to have pink flowers. The first way is if plant A has 2 copies of the dominant allele. And if it has 2 of the same copies of that dominant allele, that means it's homozygous dominant, which means it would have 2 capital F's. The other way is if plant A is heterozygous. Heterozygous plants will show the dominant allele just like homozygous dominant plants, because all you need is 1 copy of that dominant allele, and that's what's shown. Dominant is always shown. Now, since we know that there is one possible genotype there, the homozygous dominant gene, we're going to put those 2 capital F's up in the top. And I'm going to pause it for a second because I'm going too fast. So homozygous dominant goes here on the left as option number 1. But for option number 2, we still need to have a Punnett square. I'm about to continue to draw the heterozygous cross. If plant A is heterozygous, what will happen? We need to figure out what's going to happen if you cross these two plants. Okay, so we're going to keep plant B, lowercase, lowercase, on top, and we're going to put the heterozygous option for plant A on the side. When you cross these, you're going to pull one allele over from the left, one allele from the top. You're going to do this for all of the boxes until they're all full. Remember, these are the offspring. This is the F1 generation, the first generation of offspring. So we just did that in the top box for plant A if plant A was homozygous dominant. Now we're going to continue with plant A being heterozygous. And when we do that, we find that there are some heterozygous plants in the F1 generation and some homozygous recessive plants in the F1 generation. When you analyze those Punnett squares, you find out that in the top Punnett square, all of these offspring are pink because they all have a dominant allele. In the bottom Punnett square, only 50% are pink because these top two are pink, but these bottom two are white since they are homozygous recessive. So there you go. The bottom one shows us 50% pink and 50% white. Okay, putting all of that together, we know the genotype of plant A. We know that the genotype of plant A is, what do you think? Hopefully you said heterozygous. Okay, plant A is heterozygous because that is the only way that can give 50% pink and 50% white plants in the next generation. Okay, that's the only genotype that will result in that 50-50 ratio that we were originally looking for after doing the test cross. Okay? Okay, so now that we're done with this problem, we're going to move on to problems 2 and 3. Using this information, we now know plant A is heterozygous. We're going to move on and start working on part 2 and 3.